Hello, hello, hello. You are here with Dave Jose. Once again, I'm going to do this video where we're going to look at the law knowledge that I have given you guys over the past few 5 minutes to freedom videos. And we're going to look and see if I'm just blowing smoke, if this stuff is really real, or if I'm just, full of crap, some fraud that's crazy. Now, there's a lot of people out there who so-called teach law who can't tell you where the stuff is that they're looking for, so it kind of gives people a bad name. I'm not that way. My understanding is I have to show you where things are written so you can prove all things. Now, I don't just do that by even just showing where things are written. I show where things are written. I show it to you because I believe that's how God would want me to teach, right? He would want you to study to show yourself approved, and then he would want you to take that word like you do with the scriptures and give it to faithful men. So when I teach, I go to men and women who I see as faithful, and I teach them the truth. And then I open up the Bible to let them see where it is so they can confirm that what I'm saying is true. Then I let them see in the real world pictures of how God told how things would be thousands of years ago. So when I teach the law, I do the same thing. I take the law that I research and I find, and then I take it, I break it down to the people, give it to them, give them definitions out of the government officials and attorneys' law books. Then I take that knowledge and understanding that I have learned, make sure that I understand it well inside of myself in third grader language so that I can teach anybody. Then I take that knowledge and I go and do what many are afraid to do. I go and put it to the test. I go in front of the government officials, the Supreme Court justices, the legislature, and I go head to head with them and their attorneys and let everybody see. So this way, if the people are responding to me saying, hey, this is sovereign citizen stuff, this is crazy stuff, this is not in the law, I can argue with you against that, Dave, then they would do it. But if they can't fight me, it's shown openly in front of everyone. So then people have strength because they know, look, Dave has put this to the test and we saw him. And the result is what David said it should be. Now it's our job to teach the government, the legislature, the courts. We need to teach all of these guys because they get out of control and they are only our servants. So today I'm going to give you an action-packed video with a conversation that's about 3 minutes to 4 minutes long between me and the Supreme Court Justice of Arizona that retired recently. It is an amazing conversation. Everything that I showed you guys, you're going to see him explaining, and you're going to see how I used a trust argument to show his position and all of the position of the people in the room. And then I take that position they have and I show how there's a conflict of interest when they open up the doors for agencies who are going against the people to take your stuff. Then you're going to see him respond, and his response is going to be golden. So when it comes, I'm going to break his response down for you and help you to see what it is that I was doing and why I did it the way that I did it, so that you can have the knowledge, kick some butt, and we can take our nation back. Guys, it ain't hard, but we got to be diligent, study, get it in our minds so we can use it and tear it up. Let's go.
You are the best of the best, and that's why you're here. When we look in the Constitution of Arizona, we realize that there is a trust indenture. We realize that the people are granting power to our officials. One thing that is very important in the Declaration of Rights is that we must understand that we have to frequently go back to fundamental principles. Because if we don't do that, we will lose a free government. And so when we look at this situation that's happening with DCS, because you are the best of the best, the people trust you with the power that you derive from them to protect them from private corporations, from enterprises, from federal corporations that come in and collude. I don't even want to say with the state because the DCS is a private organization, it's not the state. But they are colluding and they're taking children for a profit. And that's one thing that is not being looked at. You can't have a price tag on a child, have a private business do it, and everybody say, hey, as public officials, we don't know what's going on. because I believe this ARS Section 25 that tells us that part of the money that DCS is taking, they are donating it to the general fund. So there's a trust indenture that the judges have. And it is the judges that are supposed to protect the rights of the people in the Constitution. So you can't be under the Constitution at one time and then working privately with the business on the other end under Title 4E with a contract. So I'm giving due notice so that you can give due care. Because if we don't give you notice and tell you that we know that this is outside of your trust indenture, then you may not know. When you look at what's happening, there is no separation of powers because there is a side business that is being done or used against the people to make funds. But you still have the trust indenture you have with the people, so there's a big conflict of interest there. And we need to solve it and fix it. You are the best of the best, so we come to you to plead with you humbly for you to do the right thing, for you to protect the people because that's part of your trust. So we hire you to take care of our property and to protect us. And so if people are allowed to go outside of the trust indenture, families get hurt. And so I had a case I don't even want to talk about, but
Mr. Mayor, you're acting for 10 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And members of the public, thank you again for your comments. I want to emphasize that this body, the Judicial Council, doesn't have any authority in particular cases. They can't intervene in particular cases.
So guys, listen closely as he tells you that the judiciary body that he's in cannot interfere in the individual cases. The reason he can't interfere is because it's legislative tribunals. So it's not actually courts. It's legislative tribunals that are created by the legislature that are using the executive branch agencies in order to take something from the people and is separate from the judicial courts. So what's happening is they're not using judicial courts. They're using the legislature and the executive branch to order the executive branch by statutes and the court workers who they hire in a program to make certain decisions, and the courts are not involved.
And while I understand how intensely people feel about the welfare of their children and their role as parents, you also should understand that the powers of DCS and the oversight of DCS are largely determined by statute. Those are matters the legislature is.
Okay, guys, he just told. He's telling because I put him in a trust argument that traps him about his position as a judge. Now he's saying, hey, the oversight of DCS and what they're really doing is really the legislature. This whole process you can find in the statutes spelled out, and they're what's called bills of attainder. They go after a person they create like an obligor, non-custodial parent, and they say you didn't do something they want you to do in the statutes, and then tell the court how to react and tell CPS how to react. So this is the legislature writing out statutes, punishing people with no jury trial, like I showed you guys.
The judges do the best they can.
Okay, guys, now notice that he's saying judges do the best they can. So now he's in a defensive mode where he has to defend himself because he knows exactly what I'm doing to him. So he tells that the judges have to do what they do based off of the facts in front of them, the law in front of them. But really it's statutory text that the legislature got tricked into putting together to allow CPS, an adversarial party, to take kids from the people without due process of law, without a jury. The reason they're not using a jury is because those statutes are bills of attainder that are trapping people as persons, not as the people who get all of the due right. Okay, guys, I just said a term, due rights. Now, when I say due rights, I mean those constitutional rights that I showed you guys, that the law says that with your constitutional rights, the government can't even write legislation against them. Miranda versus Arizona tells us where rights secured in the Constitution are involved, there should be no rulemaking or legislation which would abrogate them or get rid of them. In Arizona Constitution, it tells us that the rights, the provisions of this Constitution are mandatory, right? So what happens is that when the legislature starts writing statutes to remove or bypass a right with something that's not a court, they're doing what they don't have the lawful right to do. they are incorporating the judges, the attorneys, the guardian ad litems, and a federal program in order for them all to make money in a business that is private. So they're breaking the law and trampling our rights where they don't even have authority.
Deciding cases within the law based on the facts that appear before them. So I want you to understand that while we listen to your concerns, if you're concerned about something like changing whether the statute says that there was juries in dependency cases, that's not something within the authority of this council.
Is it special law, though, sir? If I may ask really quick, is it special law that they're using, or is it general law that they're using?
The authority of DCS is a process involved in dependency cases. It's largely dictated by general laws within the Arizona Revised Code.
Now, guys, you see he fumbles his words a little bit and he starts talking about general law inside of like DCS, right? There is no general law inside of DCS. Law comes from the legislature, but the legislature can't make laws against the rights of the people, as I've shown you guys. So he understands very well, okay, well, the legislature are writing these statutes and making tribunals to take y'all stuff and kids. And they can't change it. Only the legislature can change it in the statutory text, or the people are going to have to know their status in order to be able to stand up, show the legislature they've been stealing their kids, and stop it altogether by exposing the fraud that they're bringing us into courts, removing our rights with no jury of our peers, no proof of wrongdoing, no real court. See, this is the trick.
Yes. And if that's a policy position that you wish to advance, it's the legislature who should speak to. And that's my point. This body.
Okay, one last time, guys. As our dear friend Chris Hallett has taught us all, and as David Strait has taught me from the beginning, go and speak to your government officials and teach them so that they'll know the truth and you can solve issues. Chris Hallett would say you do remonstrance or petition to the legislature in order to show them that they are making errors. If you look at Arizona Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, it tells you that a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles, which I led my discussion to these judges with, tells you that if you want a free government, you have to have a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. So in order to let the legislature know that we know that they're breaking the fundamental law, we have to break it down into simple terms and go and tell them. And now you see that this judge he's stuck. And he says, listen, if you want to fix this, if you want stuff to be right, the judges try hard, but you have to go to the legislature and tell them so that they can correct the errors in the statute, because in these tribunals that are legislative, the whole court is hired under a program not to be judges, but to be administrative hearing officers who just follow whatever the law is, like he said, in front of them. The law in front of them is the statutes that have no juries, no due process of law. You are considered guilty by the statute saying, if a person does this, you are guilty of this. That quick, that easy, that simple. So you see that this position that I put him in destroys any argument, and he comes out and starts telling. He starts singing like a canary. So you see that what I'm teaching is not something fake, not something false, but real deal information that people can use to stand up, take the nation back, and make these people tell on each other and expose the fraud so that we can have a new life, a new way of living that goes back into how it was in the past, the real common law of our American history.
Has no authority on that